Alrighty, welcome back to Terra Invicta, and I'm going to do a short guide series starting with Councilors and everything to do with them, because I think there's a lot of little hidden mechanics in the game, and I think it's a good idea to start looking at some of those so we can go a little bit more in depth at what you can actually do with each of them and what all the different things in your Councilors do. So when you start a game of Terra Invicta, you are given 2 Councilors, and you'll see them in your Council tab. So you start with 2, you will be able to hire a 3rd. Later on, you will be able to get up to 6 with different techs. And then you can also turn 2 enemy ones to your side later on. What we're going to look at is all the attributes of your different councillors and how to start picking your later ones based on the shortcomings or gaps in your other councillors. The first thing when you look at a councillors, they've got a profession, and the profession will dictate some of the initial stats that they have and missions. There are many of them. Some of them will have a focus on different actions. Your diplomats will have a focus more on communications and relations between nations and people, while you could have someone like I've got a kingpin over here who is more of a criminal mastermind. So that's already showing you've got 2 different sides. You've got people who are in government and people who are criminals. You also have some science-focused ones and anywhere in between. Their profession will give you a different range of attributes and missions that they will have at the beginning. Okay, so I said attributes and all that, so let's start looking at one of our councillors over here. We've got Thomas over here, who is a diplomat. Each councillor will also have a hometown. That's something that's going to play an effect with some of the traits that they'll have, but we'll get into that a little bit later. So, attributes. These are very important. There are basically 8 of them, and we're going to go through what each one of them does, because there are some little mechanics that might not initially be visible. Each one of these has a value between 0 and 20. Okay, so the first one we got here is persuasion, and I'm going to show you a tooltip for each of these and then some other things about them. So persuasion is the ability to shape the opinions of others to your own. It is crucial in gaining support from Earth's nations. Each point of persuasion increases the councillor's influence generation by 1%. You'll see there it says it's got an unmodified stat value of 5, and then it's in green, it's showing 7. That means it's been boosted by 2 by various other things. Influence generation by 1%, so he's got a value of 7, so 7% increase on whatever their influence generation is over here. So that can add up quite nicely. You can imagine you can get up to 20%, whatever that value is. As well as that, it also grants a success chance for the control nation, the control space asset, and inspire, public campaign, and turn councillor missions. We'll go into the missions later, but it's important to know that's the base stat for these missions. So if we look at control nations mission over here, it says the stat is persuasion. If you're ever not sure what your stats you need for a mission is, just hover over it and it will show. Some missions don't have specific attributes that you need, but some do. But it will show up in the tooltip, and it's very good UI for that. The next one attribute we've got is investigation. Investigation is the councillor's ability to discover information someone would prefer to keep hidden. In addition to serving as a primary stat for a number of missions, it also determines the councillor's chances of sighting enemy councillors. So, spotting other factions' councillors, very important, and then will have an effect on the crackdown mission, detain councillors, and investigate councillors. So a lot of investigations and sort of somewhat hostile actions there. Then the next stat we've got is espionage. It's the ability to move in secret and conduct covert operations. High espionage makes the councillor much harder to detect by enemy factions. That's one of the main things. It's the chance to avoid being spotted by other factions, but it also increases the success chance of assassinations, purges, and all the sabotage missions, so facilities, hab modules, and projects, and it also increases the success chance of the steal project mission, and it decreases the success chance of enemy investigate councillor missions because you're hidden. Okay, the next one we've got is command. Command represents this councillor's ability to organize and lead combat operations. Each point in command increases this councillor's ops income by 1%. So again, this is a stat that increases your income. So if you've got a councillor who's got an ops income, might be worthwhile getting their command higher. As well as that, it also increases the success chance on assault alien assets, assault enemy space assets, coups missions, extract councillors, increase unrest, and stabilize nations. And it decreases the success chance of enemy assault enemy space assets, decreases the success chance of enemy coups, and decreases the success chance of enemy increase unrest mission. So that can be very powerful for a lot of the hostile actions that you can take and increasing your ops. The next one is a very important one that you shouldn't overlook is your administration. It is the ability to manage large organizations. Each point of administration adds 1% to this councillor's money income and allows you to control one additional org tier. So money income will be increased by 1% per point, but then very importantly, allowing you one additional org tier. So you see he's got an admin of 4, which is allowing an org capacity of 4. Each org has a tier, and you'll see that is basically the star count. So a tier 3 org will use 3 admin org capacity. Getting more admin is how you get more orgs, but there is also a cap of orgs that you can have. So you can see here in the org information tooltip, orgs may provide incomes, stat bonuses, new missions, and bonuses to the faction's investment priorities in nations. So orgs are powerful ways to boost your stats. You see this one gives bonus to persuasion, and it also gives more income, and they can also grant missions, like this one grants public campaign. So if you find you're lacking specific missions, acquiring an org is a good way to get them, especially if your council is fully slotted up and you don't have a certain mission. This is how you get it. Okay, the next attribute we've got is a science, the ability to investigate and analyze phenomena to derive new understandings of the universe and those who inhabit it. Each point of science increases this councillor's research income by 1%. High science scores will also help defend our interests against alien activity. I'm not actually sure how that works, but the science attribute will give you plus 1% for your research. So if you have characters got high research, boosting their science will add to that. Can be very powerful. The next one is security, and basically this one is an all-round decrease of enemy success chances of all the missions they can do against your councillor and the things that they are defending. Security is their ability to survive violence. So getting this up will decrease the success chance of enemy assassinate, control space assets, detain councillor, extract councillor, investigate councillor, sabotage missions, sabotage hab, sabotage project, steal project, and turn councillor missions. So boosting that up just makes it harder for the enemy to do anything against this councillor. And the last one we've got here is loyalty. You see it showing as a apparent loyalty because you generally don't know the actual inner workings of their minds. So their loyalty is based on the estimate of their loyalty based on their behavior. You can discover their actual loyalty by doing the investigate councillor mission. Then you'll get the actual loyalty score. It's very important though because if it gets too low, they might get turned by the enemy and start sabotaging your operations. What you want to do is you want to do the inspire mission, which will boost loyalty. So each councillor will have their incomes based on all their orgs and their traits boosted by their attributes. One thing that you want to take notice of for orgs is you can get one with engineering projects. Engineering projects allow you to have more research slots, so you can be doing multiple projects at a time. So that can be very powerful. There are a bunch of traits that each councillor can have, and these will all have boosts on their different incomes, their attributes, and what orgs they're able to control. We'll see this one has got the rich trait, which means they give more income and influence, but they have less persuasion in nations where inequality is of a different value. That can then start having pretty powerful effects of where you want to use a councillor. You might forget these as you're doing stuff, but it's important to check. Another important thing to check, you just want to watch out that some of your councillors don't have a certain trait for being enemy of the state or persona non grata of a certain nation, because that means they can't perform missions there. So if you have a character who is from the United States and who is enemy of the state, they can't perform any missions there. And if you're starting off the game wanting to capture the United States and the only person you have capable of doing the control nation mission is them, you won't be able to cap it. So definitely check that out. If you're unsure what the traits all do, hovering over them will give you a nice tooltip which tells you all the stuff about it, and it's very easy to figure out. As I said, the things we want to watch out for: enemy of the state and persona non grata. Those will disable doing missions in certain areas. You get a bunch of negative ones as well, just reducing their skills or learning and stuff like that. You get a bunch of traits which are sort of mixed, which give you bonuses and negatives. And then there's some that you want to watch out for that will be very important for getting different orgs. You can have some councillors who have the government trait over here. Being part of a recognized government grants access to orgs not available to other councillors. Some of your orgs you need to have the government trait. Some of them you need to not be a criminal, and some of them are criminal organizations. You have to be a criminal to get part of them. You also get some traits that have some special bonuses. You got people who might have like computer scientists or different types of scientist traits or whatever their career is, and that might have an effect on missions and events that pop up. Having a councillor with certain traits might give you the ability to choose different options. So we've looked at attributes, the incomes, traits, and a little bit about the orgs. And then let's just go through some of the missions that we can have available. So as I said, there are several that use specific attributes to increase these skills, and there are some that don't. Those that don't generally are ones that aren't contested against enemy actions. So you could do something like the set national policy or the advise mission. Those will just go through straight away, and you don't have to worry about skills for that. They can go on any councillor. But you want to make sure that you have some specific missions available at the start of the game and as you go through the game. So you definitely want someone who has the control nation ability. If you don't have that, you can't gain control in any nation and you won't be able to do anything, because that's where all your incomes will come from. Very important. You will, I think, pretty much definitely have one in your first two councillors. What you want to start looking at is for your third councillor, what you don't have available in your other two. When I started my one campaign, I didn't have anyone who had the public campaign mission, and that is a very important one that you want to make sure that you get. Doing a public campaign in a nation will boost their public opinion of you, which makes it easier to do control nation events and stuff like that. Very important that you have that. It makes it a lot easier, especially in some of the harder to control nations like the United States. It's basically required that you have high public support there, otherwise you're just not going to have any success chance. You'll see when you do a mission, you'll get a bunch of the positives going towards it and the negative going towards it, as well as the attributes that are dedicated to that mission will give you a boost, and all those will add up to different percentage chance of success or not. So you want to make sure you also have the crackdowns and purges. Crackdowns allow you to perform an action on an enemy control point and say, hey, let's remove all benefits from them of that control point and then make it easier for you to do a purge there. The purge mission allows you to take the enemy control point into your own control. And then another very important one that you want to have is the defend interests. Basically, that one will make it harder for crackdowns and purges and all that to occur. You definitely want to be doing that over your important assets, because if someone does do the crackdown on you, you lose all the income that you were getting from that control point. And if that was one of the things that you were relying upon for income, you're not getting it. And then they might even steal it from you. Then the other ones that are very important later on, as I said, you want to get the Inspire mission and you want to have the Investigate Councillor mission. Inspire will improve the loyalty of a councillor, and you want to be doing that over time to make sure that your councillors are loyal. The Investigate Councillor will then show you the actual loyalty. The other things that you can be doing against enemy councillors are the Turn Councillor mission, which will then allow you to have an effect on the missions they perform for their faction. You can also detain an enemy councillor, which will basically put them out of action for a certain amount of turns, so you don't have to worry about them. This can also happen to you, and if that happens, you might want to use the Extract Councillor mission from one of your councillors. It can kind of suck to have a councillor unavailable for several months or turns. So those are the very important ones that you want to make sure you have. Some other important ones that you want to have are the Assault Alien Asset, because I'm not going to give spoilers, but that can become a problem. For the missions that you need to do for the campaign, Investigate Alien Activity mission, you're going to need that on someone to advance through the game. Also very useful. I can't go through all the missions in this, otherwise it's going to be an extremely long video, but hopefully that gives you an idea. So I think we've covered all the things. We've got the Councillor, most of the important missions, and the orgs that they can have. Let me know if you have any questions, and if I said anything wrong, put that in a comment as well, so it can help people learn to play this very awesome but complicated game. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll check you next time. I'm going to do a guide on countries or nations and what all the things that they do there. Let me know what other things you would like to learn about, and check out my campaign that I'm currently playing with Project Exodus. Thanks for joining in. See you next time. Bye.